Here's an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We'll do a quick overview of OPC, the Ocean Protection Council, and our existing Senate Bill 1 grant program, which will frame up what we're talking about today. We'll get then into the details of the tribal funding program, and following that, we'll lay out a process for how to apply and next steps. And then we actually will have our technical assistance team, Coastal Quest, jump in and share some slides how we can support our grantees. And finally, we'll move into Q&A. Slide, please. A quick overview of the Ocean Protection Council. We are a state agency. We work to ensure the maintenance of healthy and resilient and productive ocean and coastal ecosystems for current and future generations, all Californians. And we do this through integrating science and policy, which is guided through our strategic plan. We're here to carry out two objectives: resiliency to sea level rise and enhancing engagement with tribes. Slide, please. So this is going to go a little bit into the history of the SB1 grant program before we get into the specifics of this tribal grant program, but it will help us explain the background and the context around where we are now and why we're offering this program and how we are increasing the flexibility of this grant program. So in 2021, Governor Newsom signed Senate Bill 1 into law. It directs the state to provide funding to local and regional governments to develop sea level rise adaptation plans and implementation projects. However, a mechanism was still missing that actually required local governments to complete those plans, and it left a gap of consistency in sea level rise planning efforts. And so to address this, Senate Bill 272 was signed into law in 2023. And that bill required all coastal local governments to develop sea level rise plans through land use plans. It has a deadline of 2034, so we are 9 years out. And these plans must be integrated into a land use plan, either a local coastal program or a San Francisco Bay shoreline resiliency plan. Slide, please. As a response to this legislation, OPC developed the Senate Bill 1 grant program for local, regional, and tribal governments to plan for sea level rise through the development of a land use plan. We have two tracks. Track 1 develops community visioning, vulnerability assessments, and the plans that we just spoke of. Proposals are reviewed on a quarterly, non-competitive, rolling basis. And there is a tribal set-aside that can be accessed by tribes if they apply on their own behalf or if they partner with the local government. But this is limited legally to federally recognized tribes, which we'll get into later. Track 2 is for implementation of sea level rise adaptation projects, things like project design and construction for adaptation projects and strategies, things like a living shoreline or habitat restoration or rebuilding a public access way. Track 2 is anticipated to open actually in a couple of months. We are still developing it, though there is a mechanism for projects that are urgent and dealing with sea level rise impacts now. Slide, please. Okay, now we're going to get into the specifics of this tribal grant program that we are talking about today. This is a quick overview of the program. We have allocated up to $5 million for this new funding opportunity. Most projects we anticipate to fall between $250,000 and $750,000, so that's $250,000 and $750,000. But we are flexible, understanding that projects may be smaller or larger depending on need and scope. And ideally, we're looking for projects that can be completed within 2 years. The first proposal deadline is September 12th, so we have a few months, but we will continue accepting proposals on a quarterly basis. So if your project isn't quite ready yet, don't worry, this is a rolling program, and we encourage you to apply a following quarter when your project is ready. Importantly, this is non-competitive. That means that proposals won't be pitted or scored against each other. They just do need to meet the expectations that are outlined in the solicitation. Another thing to note is that we will be having technical assistance available for grantees and people writing proposals to navigate the process. And I shared this before, but that team, Coastal Quest, is here today, and they will share some more information about the specifics of their program towards the end of the webinar. Slide, please. This funding opportunity is specifically designed to support tribes in addressing the impacts of sea level rise on their cultural resources, ancestral lands, sacred sites, and other important assets as defined by the tribe. We're funding two types of projects, and they can be one and or both, pre-planning and planning. Pre-planning can include things like community visioning, synthesizing existing information that is available, conducting background research, collecting new data, doing education and outreach for the tribe that is attached to the program, and completing vulnerability assessments on sea level rise and sea level rise related impacts. Planning includes developing adaptation priorities, preparing resources to support tribal participation in local and regional land use planning, and identifying strategies that could be implemented to protect cultural resources over time. And this is really flexible how the tribe defines the planning portion. The goal is to give tribes the space and flexibility to define their own priorities and get the tools they need to lead or participate in meaningful adaptation efforts in the broader area. Slide, please. Okay, we understand that the SB1 grant program is large, and track 1, which is planning for local jurisdictions, is confusing with the tribal track. So we have this slide to highlight the key differences between the two programs. So first is eligibility. The tribal track is open to California Native American tribes, both federally recognized and non-federally recognized, as long as the latter apply through a nonprofit partner. In contrast, track 1 is only available to federally recognized tribes. Second, we have the focus of the two tracks. The tribal track supports tribally driven sea level rise planning and planning efforts. And this helps tribes engage in consultation on local land use plans, which is how it links back to the broader SB1 program. Track 1, on the other hand, is a little more restrictive. It requires planning lead to the development of a land use plan. And we know that that is a clear barrier for tribes considering the barrier of land purview. And then third, we have the differing flexibility of the two tracks. The tribal track offers a little more flexibility in how tribes assess the impacts of sea level rise on their cultural resources, including the integration of traditional knowledge in addition to science, as the tribe defines. Track 1 requires proposals to meet specific state-defined technical criteria. And then finally, the actual funding amount. There's a dedicated $5 million available for the tribal track, with an anticipated award size between $250,000 and $750,000. Track 1 has a broader pool of $14 million that is left right now, and we have a 5% set aside specifically for tribes that are leading their own projects or co-developing with local governments. Slide, please. Okay, here is a quick look at our anticipated timeline for the tribal funding program. The solicitation was just released July 2nd, so about a week ago, and full proposals are due September 12th. We'll spend a few months reviewing proposals. That will include tribal consultation on all projects. Projects will be selected around February of 2026 and then approved at the Ocean Protection Council meeting in March of that year. And then it takes a few months to stand up the grant agreement following approval of the project. And so we anticipate that the earliest project could start around June of 2026. Importantly, I've already mentioned this, but I'll reiterate it again. This is just round 1. We're planning for around 4 rounds of funding over the next year or so, a quarterly rolling basis. So we have up on our website the anticipated deadlines for the rest of the year. So that means that if your project isn't quite ready, please don't worry. We don't anticipate the funds disappearing. There will be more opportunities to apply. Slide, please. Okay, so this is a little bit more about the process of the solicitation and submitting a proposal. In order to apply for this Tribal Cultural Resources Funding Program, there's a template for full proposals available on our SB1 Tribal webpage. You'll find all the instructions within the application template form. We'll still go through a lot of it on this webinar today. The different sections of the proposal have different page limits, so just take note as you go through. I'm going to go through the instructions in a few slides. We'll get there pretty quickly. Slide, please. Okay, I want to be very explicit on the applicant eligibility. I've already mentioned this before, but I will reiterate, this is open to all California Native American tribes. That includes federally recognized tribes who can apply directly, but it also includes non-federally recognized tribes who just have to apply through a nonprofit partner. Slide, please. Okay, so here are those step-by-step instructions for applications. First, we recommend that you read very closely the Tribal Cultural Resources Funding Solicitation. It outlines everything you need to know about eligibility. Specifically, take a look for eligibility at Section H, Cross-Cutting Priorities for Projects. Project types, which we went through pre-planning and planning, and then expectations, so things like the cost amount, the budget, the timeline. We strongly encourage you to reach out to our technical assistance team. They are wonderful. They're here to help you shape you and prepare your proposal so that it is as successful as possible. They'll answer questions along the way and guide you through the application process. Download the proposal template and instructions from our website, and you can use that to directly complete your application. Attach any required documentation that might be needed. That's all listed in the solicitation. It will likely look like a nonprofit questionnaire, letters of support or letters of commitment. And then when you're ready, submit the complete proposal package to opc-sb1@resources.ca.gov. Again, all this information is online, just walking us through it, by September 12th at 5 p.m. Slide, please. Okay, so the application itself is divided into 5 sections. It starts with the cover page. This is where you'll list all your contact information for the tribe and any subcontractors that you already know you're going to meet, you're already going to partner with. You don't have to know your subcontractors. It's just nice to know if you already know who you're working with. Section 2 is an application completeness checklist to make sure that you have everything that's required and help you ensure that you're in the right direction. Section 3 is your project description, which is capped at 4 pages. This is really the heart of your application. It should include the project summary, the need for sea level rise planning, so the impacts that are occurring or anticipated to occur, use of best available science and knowledge, that means traditional knowledge, how you'll use any tribal data and how it's going to be protected, and how likely the project is to succeed, and any other engagement with planning efforts. Section 4 is the work plan. This is also 4 pages max. You'll outline your key tasks, who's doing what and how it all fits together, and the timeline. Section 5 will be the schedule and major deliverables. This one is capped at 2 pages to keep it clear and realistic with timeline and outputs. Slide, please. We're getting there. Thanks for hanging in there. Okay, to wrap it up, section 6 is the budget. It's limited to 2 pages. It should clearly show how funds will be allocated across the project, including staff, tasks, and partners, and it will also need to be aligned with your work plan and the scope there. Section 7 is those supplementary documents to show readiness and community support and buy-in. We also ask for resumes and CVs of the project team. And if you're a non-federally recognized tribe applying through a nonprofit partner, that's where you'll have your pre-award nonprofit questionnaire. Again, we request letters of commitment and resolutions or MOUs if there are partners on the project, and letters of support from local governments, other tribes, partners who may be involved in the project or can show interest and support. Slide, please. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up on my end. If you have any questions as you're preparing a proposal, of course, we have our technical assistance team who we're gonna pass it over to in just a minute. But we also have a shared inbox that is open and monitored by many members of our team, all of our team, and that is opc-sb1@resources.ca.gov. And then we have the tribal webpage, which I know I saw flash up in the chat. That is updated regularly with any updates. All of the dates and deadlines and resources are on the webpage. We anticipate hosting office hours and creating an FAQ sheet as we see repetitive questions come through our door. And so that will be regularly updated with more information and updates. Okay, that is about it for my section of this. I'm going to ask for slide and pass it to Emma, our lead from the TA team, Coastal Quest. Thank you.
Thanks, Ella. And hello, everyone. It's an honor to speak to you, and thank you for being here on your no doubt very busy Thursday. I'll try to keep this informative and concise for everyone. As Ella mentioned, I'm Emma. I'm here representing Coastal Quest, and we are the TA coordinator and lead TA provider for the complimentary SB1 TA program. I'll tell you a little bit about the program today. But our team is here for you whenever you might have questions, and we'll be dropping information on how to reach us, obviously, in the chat later and talk about that a bit more in a second. So as I mentioned, and as Ella mentioned, the SB1 Technical Assistance Program is a complementary program, emphasis on complementary, that supports applicants addressing significant and imminent sea level rise impacts. Our team is here to offer tailored technical assistance based on the needs of the TA recipient, whether that's offering help with scoping a project, offering grant rating review, grant rating services, general capacity building support for your SB1 proposal, and more. We work with our wonderful partners, Indigenous Justice and Farallon Strategies, during TA implementation as we offer our TA services. So I'm going to dive into what some of these services look like in more detail on the next slide. So here you'll see quite a few services that we currently offer under the SB1 grant program. Please note, because the technical assistance for the Tribal Cultural Resources Program is just now kicking off, we expect that the TA process is subject to some change over time. So please note that our online questionnaire that we'll talk about in a second, and the TA services listed here, and how we implement this TA might be altered over time based on feedback from tribes, from our project partner, Indigenous Justice, and Farallon Strategies, as well as OPC, as the program matures. Currently, under this program, all eligible TA recipients can receive what we call high-touch technical assistance services that are listed here on this slide. Upon intake, so after you submit an online questionnaire, or in our initial meeting, after you apply, we'll chat about your TA needs, align on the services that you would like, potentially including additional services beyond what is listed here. Then, after we align on needs, we'll compare against the SB1 TA program team's capacity, and offer a work plan detailing the amount of hours we're able to offer against the services that you're looking to have. So this in mind, it's a great idea to get an application in as soon as possible for TA, even if you're not really sure exactly what your project is going to look like, because in this way, we can offer you as much complementary capacity as possible. And on the next slide, we'll go into some important dates that Ella did touch on before, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about them and also add some context to the TA program. So we, as a TA program, have rolling deadlines that are obviously very closely associated with the full proposal deadline for OPC. In order for us to offer enough services to really assist, we strongly encourage you to please submit your online questionnaire at least a month in advance. However, for complex projects, or if you feel that your capacity is on the lower side and you want more TA, I would also strongly encourage you to submit the TA online questionnaire well before the rolling deadline. So could be as soon as today. Next slide, please. So all of this is to say, if you're interested in accessing these funds, if you're interested in exploring technical assistance, today is a great day to get started. If you have questions that you'd like addressed in advance of submitting the online questionnaire, please feel free to reach out via the email that is listed here that we can also drop in the chat, and we can set up a quick informational call. On that call, we can work through the online questionnaire or discuss your project idea, whatever it is that you want. However, if you are ready to fill out the online questionnaire, it is linked here via this QR code, and is also found on the OPC website on the page titled SB1 Tribal. We ask that you do not take longer than 7 to 15 minutes on the form, because in our follow-up meetings, we'll be able to iron out any further details. So if it looks like it's a lot, just answer it within that time frame and move on. We know your time is valuable. After the form is filled out, we'll contact you and set up that intake call. During intake, we will answer any questions that you have about the program, and then depending upon your needs, we'll assign different TA services and help you to submit a competitive application.